Hello, I'm Craig Damlow from Soapbox Rocket, and this is my Founders Live Influencer Series video on defining the problem. And I want to talk about solving problems rather than providing solutions. And I know this sounds like a semantical argument and maybe a questionable, but this is about following the philosophy of problem solving first rather than solution creation first. It's a short video. We're only talking 15 minutes. Try to stick with me, and I think you'll get great value from it after you understand the value in following the philosophy of solving problems rather than providing solutions. So a little lame, but I want to go through the definitions first. So the definition of a solution is the act of solving a problem, a question, etc. And there it is. There's your solving a problem. So even if you're producing that solution, you've got to understand the problem. And that's why I think it's more important to solve the problem first than provide solutions. It's about understanding the problem. So let's define problem then. So problem is any question or matter involving doubt, uncertainty, or difficulty. And the important things here are any matter, difficulty, right? The value that your company, your product, your service creates is in saving your customer time, money, or some other aspect, essentially adding value. It's about adding value to their life. And if you don't understand their problem, or if you don't understand what makes the problem difficult for them, then your solution might not be the correct solution. It might not be a money-making solution. And that's what you want it to be, is you want it to be a money-making solution. So that's why we want to work from problem to solution rather than creating a solution and going and finding the problem. So I want to take an example, and this is a solution to a problem. So the problem, the defined problem is that in Nepal we have a low birth weight and a high infant mortality. So a lot of babies are dying because they're born too small, to really premature babies, and they can't stay warm. So what they end up doing is they die from hypothermia. Solution to that is let's have a fundraiser. We'll buy a whole bunch of incubators and we'll ship them over to Nepal. The problem that solution solves is that there's not enough incubators for low birth weight infants. So we've got our solution. Our solution is we will buy a bunch of incubators and we'll send them to Nepal. Meaning that the only problem we can solve in Nepal is if there's not enough incubators for low-weight infants. Now, this project was done. It was done back in the 90s, early 2000s. And a student team went over to Nepal. They had incubators. And, of course, the Nepalese thanked them. And then showed them where they store all of the incubators they get, because that wasn't the problem they had. They had storage rooms full of incubators. And we in the first world kept helping solve the problem that we believed that there wasn't enough incubators. Because if you put a baby in an incubator, it helps save its life. So this is following that traditional process. We come up with a strategy, we brainstorm a solution, we develop the solution, then we kind of define our solution and we evaluate it, make sure it works. It was in the evaluation phase that they realized that the solution was wrong. They brought all the incubators and realized, oh, they already have a bunch of incubators, this isn't going to work. But this is a traditional process for creating a new product, creating a new service. And I love this quote. It's from Chip Heath, and he wrote Made to Stick. And it says, people who design products are experts cursed by their knowledge, and they can't imagine what it's like to be as ignorant as the rest of us. And that's so true. And this is why I want you, especially early stage development, if you're here starting a new company, take this as gospel that you already have been cursed. Step back away from your solution and recheck the problem you're solving. Make sure that you're not solving it just for you. That's another big problem that you see a lot in development and product development and company creation is I know the problem. I've got this problem and I'm going to solve it. And then when I say get it out onto the market, everybody's going to beat a path down to my door and want it. Well, a lot of times it turns out the problem was too unique to you and your solution was even more unique to you. So it's about getting out and understanding. And the key to doing that is empathy. And so I'm a huge design thinking proponent, evangelist, whatever you want to call it. So I'm going to use this platform to talk more about it. And this is the design thinking process. You empathize with your customer, then you define the problem. And that's my defining problems, define solutions. Then you come up with ideas, you brainstorm, then you prototype, then you test. And of course, you make sure you cycle in here as much as you can. When you've got a prototype, take it back to the field, back and empathize with your customer. Does it work for them? Does it fit in their process? And you want to constantly cycle that through, redefine your problem. And so if we compare that with the other process, just lining them up, you can kind of see what happens is first, a lot of companies, a lot of reasons that there's some pushback on creating design thinking is the strategy component. The old component starts with strategy. If I'm a company, I've got a strategy to make money, or ultimately my strategy is to make money. In design thinking, there's no explicit strategy. It actually falls out by empathizing with your customers. It helps you identify your market and identify how big that market is by really working, and your strategy will fall out. Then you can kind of see we shift things around. We bring define to the front, redefine it a little bit as let's define the problem rather than our solution. Then we kind of follow along, right? We brainstorm, we develop, and we test. Change those words a little bit. They mean the same thing. It doesn't really matter. The important thing here is doing the order first. The strategy fails sometimes. It doesn't always fail. It works sometimes. It fails sometimes because you've got a solution and now you want to figure out how do I make money from my solution, as opposed to working the design thinking way of saying, I'm going to go find a market, understand their problems, and then come up with a solution to sell to them. And that's probably the finer detail that's sometimes lost is with design thinking, you start with a market and create a solution, as opposed to with the traditional model, a lot of times it's I've got a solution and a strategy, and now I'm going to go find my market. Not always the best way to do it. It works sometimes, and if you really know your market and you don't have to go find one, this strategy can work. It's not that it doesn't work. It's just that it's sometimes more difficult. And my philosophical bent towards design thinking is let's find the problem before we find the solution. So empathy. I'm going to go back to the definitions. Let's define empathy. It's the psychological identification with or vicarious experiencing of the feelings, thoughts, and attitudes of another. For design thinking, your product building, it's about identification with another person. Identifying what is their difficulties in the problem, and then identifying with them that the solution you have actually addresses their difficulties with the problem. So we're not just building a solution, we're building a solution for a customer. And again, that's something we've talked about in the past on these videos, is building a user map, a user experience map, or an empathy map. and you want to use those tools when you do this. I'm just trying to backing up this video a little bit to support those other ones. So why do we want to empathize? I kind of talked about it, but it's to discover people's explicit and implicit needs so that you can meet them through your design solutions. And the explicit ones tend to be fairly easy. Those are the ones you see. The implicit ones are the ones you find through empathizing with the customer. So it's not just about watching them and observing them. It's actually going through the process with them, talking to them about why do you do it this way? Why do why are you using this tool? And then coming up with a solution. And so we don't actually know what problem we should be working on until we understand our user, right? That's the point I'm trying to get at. That was the failing of the example of solution to problem above, is that we knew babies were dying from hypothermia, so we just gave them more incubators. So here's the actual solution. The students that went, they came up with the Embrace program. So again, same issue here, Nepal, low birth weight, infant mortality. Define the problem first. They went over there and they found they had plenty of incubators. The problem was poor access to hospitals and no electricity at home for incubators, besides the fact that the incubators were too big and too heavy to carry home. Their solution they came up with was portable, non-electronic baby warming devices to get dying infants to a hospital. So you have a premature birth, you earlier in the pregnancy, you had gone to the doctor for a checkup. He gave you an Embrace kit. He says, if the baby comes early, put it in the Embrace and bring it back. And that kept babies warm. And, so let's just do a one-to-one comparison here. Solution to problem: hundreds of unused incubators sit in Nepal and all over the third world in hospitals, and we still have 1 million infant deaths per year. That was building a product, or in this case, it was kind of a service. The problem to solution: 20,000 plus infants have been saved to date, not just reached. And the reach of the Embrace program is now across 20 countries and climbing. So there, you're addressing a market need. Rather than building a product, you're addressing a market need. And if you're looking to raise money and you're going to investors and you tell them, hey, I've got a great product, I'm going to sell millions of it, they're interested, of course. They want to dig into it. And if you go and you say, I'm addressing an unmet market need, suddenly they're going to be more interested. Why have you found that need? And you're going to say, it's because I went out and I talked to my customers. I empathized with them. I understood their problem before I built my product. So that's it. There we go. A little under 15 minutes. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching and or listening. If you have any questions right now on November 28th, if you were watching this then, go to founderslive.com. I'm going to do some live question Q&A. Otherwise, you can contact me at my website, soapboxrocket.com, or find me on LinkedIn, LinkedIn, yada, 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 Craig Damlow. And I will, I'll help you out. Let me know what you've got. And, again, it's maybe a bit of a semantic argument, but it's about the philosophy of understanding your customer, understanding their problem, and building solutions for them rather than building a solution and finding a problem that it fits. Thanks.